And joining us right now, one of the architects of one of the football teams that has great expectations this year, very different than last year, when I looked at this guy and said, boy, you guys are going to stink. I feel bad. It's not your fault. Now he's sitting on the gold mine, and that's Joe Schoen. Joe, good to see you again. How you doing?
That was some rant you were on right there. I didn't know.
Joe,
I walked in at the right time.
Have you ever released information trying to obscure the fans' view of your team?
Have I ever
released information?
He hasn't had to yet.
Have you ever made an announcement? We are signing XYZ.
No.
To deflect from the reality of what's going on within the side of the team.
No, we have not done that.
There you go. Proof positive that your assertion that Derek Jeter coming to Old Timers Day has nothing to do with Hal's decision, or at least the desire to obscure the obvious. How you doing, Joe?
I'm good. Yeah, just try to get through camp here and stay healthy and get to the regular season.
I remember when I talked to you last year, not on air, Evan, and I had a very different take on where the Giants would be. I knew that the run game was going to be good. The offensive line was a strength, even though not in the pass game, but in the run game. This year coming in, what's the unseen that you believe is going to happen with this team that people aren't paying attention to?
Yeah, I would say some of the weapons that we've added with, Darren Waller, Paris Campbell, bringing Slayton back, Jalen Hyatt, Beasley's had a really good camp. Shep had a really good day today. He looks like he's getting back to where he was previously. Wandell. So I think instead of a little bit of a revolving door at the receiver position, which we had last year, multiple starters throughout the season, that'll make it easy for Daniel, the continuity in the passing game. I think you'll see much more of that this year.
You guys put a lot of faith in Daniel Jones, and I almost believe it raises his confidence some when you sign him to a long-term contract, at least on paper. A long-term contract, we know there's outs to that, but that's not part of this conversation. How did that affect him? Right, knowing that he is the guy, at least you guys view him as the guy to pay him $40 million a year. How did that change him?
You would never know. He's still the first one in the morning. He's here late at night. He's in the room, the quarterback room with all the quarterbacks, some of the offensive linemen, and that's what we saw last year. There's not a lot that's going to change this kid. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. He's very even keeled. Some of those fourth quarter comebacks, kind of showed what he can do under pressure. So. He's the type of kid that, more money, contract, any of that stuff, he's not going to show it, and, we haven't seen any difference in his approach.
When you took over last year, I think the assumption we all had was, you'll see what you got in Daniel Jones. You'll evaluate at the end of the year, and if you move on, you move on. When, during the course of last year, did you say to yourself, crap, we got our guy? Like, he's proven it. This is the guy I want to build around long term.
Yeah, there was never like an aha moment. It's just he kept stacking. Again, we got off to a fast start, and there were some fourth quarter comebacks, and he was taking care of the football, and we were winning games. So he kept stacking week after week, good game after good game after good game, and they're not all going to be great, but we saw the consistency, we saw his professionalism, his leadership, how he approached the game. He has the physical tools. He's young. At that position, the lack of continuity throughout your career, that can affect you at that position. He hadn't had it, and we've got a very good offensive staff, and I think he was able to flourish under the good coaching, and then again, just the way he's wired. A lot of it is the way he's wired, and he approaches his craft.
Was the deal hard to get done? Was there a lot of haggling one way or another? We know how this works for quarterbacks. It's different for every other position. But for the quarterback, it's like, all right, this guy made this. You got to make X percent more of this. What was that negotiation like?
Yeah, it was difficult. And, again, he made a change right there probably right before the combine. So it's something as soon as the season's over, hey, we know we want to go forward with Daniel as our guy, and we'd like to get things rolling. And there was a little bit of uncertainty who was going to be representing him. So once that finally happened, then we could kind of speed things up. And, deadlines are good for negotiations, and, we tried to put some parameters in place in order to get something done. And athletes first came in, and they did the deal, and they were great to work with. But it was not easy by any means, and the quarterback deals are never easy. Having been through that with Josh Allen in Buffalo recently, those are it's big numbers. It's you're trying to come up with comps, and there's just.
Was there a moment in that final hour or so where you thought, we're not getting this done? I'm just going to end up having to tag him?
Yeah. Yeah, within the last hour. It came down to the end. I say yes, but at the end of the day, I always felt like Daniel and his representatives, throughout all the hard work, we would get something done. But, yeah, at some point you get stubborn. You're like, F it. I'll just walk. But no, they did a great job, and we weren't going to let that happen. They rolled their sleeves up. We rolled our sleeves up. We were literally in the same room for like the last hour and a half on a whiteboard. What about this? What about no? I don't want to do. It was back and forth.
There was never a scenario where he wasn't going to be here. It was always just if we tag him, we tag him. But there was never. You tell me a scenario where he wasn't going to be the quarterback of the team?
Yeah, no, there wasn't. And I think I said that in the postseason press conference that he was going to be our quarterback this year. So we knew if we needed to, the franchise tag was available, but that wasn't going to be good for any of us. And luckily we were able to get something.
It would have been good for Saquon though, because then he wouldn't have been tagged. He would have been a free agent.
Yeah,
right?
let's get to the difficult part.
It would have been good for any of us.
How much of the time to get the Daniel Jones deal took away from getting Saquon done?
Not at all. Not at all. The deals were independent of each other, and we had outstanding offers with not just those two, but some other players. So you kind of know. Again, you're trying to operate under a salary cap. You know how much money you have, how you want to divvy it up. So again, there's free agency starts on a Wednesday, and the legal tampering, I should say, is Monday at noon.
By the way, they need to get rid of. Why they even just start it on Monday?
Yeah,
seriously.
Exactly. You should. But Monday at noon you can start. So again, you may have Bobby Okereke. You got a deal out, and Paris Campbell and Slayton, and you've got different deals out. So you're trying to manage all these agents and players and expectations and at the same time. So back to February, we had deals out for both, and it didn't matter.
Yeah. At what point will you feel comfortable with your cap situation? Because I know we talked about this last year. Last year was going to be tough. This year is it feels like it's better, but it's actually still kind of tough. When are you going to feel comfortable with the cap where you can go make some exorbitant move elsewhere in free agency, non-quarterback, obviously?
Yeah, and I think kind of taking our lumps last year, I felt good about it this year. Again, there's still some dead money in 2024 from a couple players that we had to move money down the road just to get through the 2022 season. So there is some dead money even in next year from that. So again, I feel good about it now because we were able to sign some of our own. We had more flexibility this offseason. Again, whether it was sign Bobby, trade for Waller, Paris, bring in some of Nacho, Ashawn Robinson, bring in some of those guys, extend AT, Daniel, Dex. So I think good mix between signing some of our own and bringing some guys in from the outside. And you still gotta subsequent that with or build through the draft.
So let me dig into your brain a little bit. Obviously, you're thinking short term. You got to win 2023. We got to have a winning season. We got to the playoffs last year. The expectation, as Evan mentioned, has risen. It just is what it is because you're not expected to be bad. But how much of your thinking is short versus long term? Right? You guys have equity in this city right now, and with the Giant fan, where are you thinking? Short term, long term, as far as building a team that can win a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think it's always important to do both. And again, we've only been here for 20 months or whatever. I mean, it feels like 8 years, but I think it's important. Again, we've only had 2 drafts and really one off season where we had some financial flexibility. Where last year, we were tied up against the cap. So I think again, some of our moves last year, it was again compete today and build for tomorrow. Whether it was claiming guys off the waiver wire like Jason Pinnock who may start for us, like small moves like that, or waiver claims or practice squad elevation. That's kind of for today. And then, you're also trying to build down the road where Jason Pinnock, maybe he can start for, us next year. We had some one-year signings this year, whether it was veteran guys like Ashawn was a one-year deal. And then you have, Nacho was a little bit longer, Bobby was a little bit longer. So there's those, hey, these are going to be foundational pieces, and then maybe it's 1 year, let's see how it works out, and we can extend them after that. So you're always trying to weigh, that, but it's also was hand in hand with your cap situation where you are financially, and then again that's where you draft well, and those are young contributors that financially don't cost you as much, which I think is very important.
We're talking to Joe Schoen, general manager of the New York Giants. So we spent a lot of time talking about not just Saquon but running backs in the NFL. They don't get paid a lot. What do you say to Saquon Barkley, who could argue, hey, I'm the second most important player on this roster, yet I'm not paid that way? What do you say to him when kind of looks at what everyone else is making and he had to kind of just accept the franchise tag?
Yeah, I respect the question, and we're in a good place now. We're past that, and we tried. I mean, we tried for 9.5 months to get something done, and we didn't. And we're in a really good spot right now. And I credit Saquon. He showed up on time. He's in phenomenal shape. He's a leader. You see him working with our young guys. He's had a really good camp, and we're looking forward to what he's going to do this year.
Did his camp beg for a non-tag clause for next year to come to camp? Please don't tag me next year.
No, we didn't. He's here. We're good. He's in a good place. I don't want to. I mean, that seems like so long ago. I respect
Jet fan trying to stir controversy in Giant land.
I respect it.
Look, Jonathan Taylor's dealing with it in a certain way in Indianapolis. Running backs want to get paid; they don't get paid. It's not your fault. I mean, you're not the czar of not paying running backs. It's everybody. Like the NFL, in one voice, has basically said, "We don't really value you." And isn't that the reality of what we're witnessing?
Yeah, but what's the number? Like, what do you say? Like, what's
compared
the number?
to
nobody ever says what they think the number should be. What do you guys think the number should be?
The problem is
based on.
No, I agree with you.
The issue is
I'm
not saying that. Like, what do you guys think the number is? Like,
I think because running backs.
Everybody says you're not doing this, you're not doing X, Y, and Z. But what is that number?
There's no right answer to that, but you can understand why someone who does their job as well as they do at that position look at other players and say, well, why is this guy getting $80 million guaranteed? Like, why am I in this spot? So, and by the way, I don't disagree with you. Like, I basically said a couple of weeks ago to Tiki, I said, yeah, Saquon has a big year. You tag him, maybe even trade him. Like, you almost have to treat running backs in that way. It sucks for them.
Yeah.
I feel bad saying it in front of Tiki. Guy was a running back.
But
it is what it is.
I didn't make any money when I was playing either. Ernie, of course, who wasn't any nicer than Joe Schoen. So it is what it is. But, I mean, when did you see it change for the running back? Because I feel like leading up to the Christian McCaffrey deal, and maybe that's it, actually. It was what Zeke did, what Christian McCaffrey's deal was like, even though he didn't really lobby for it. It just kind of happened. But they immediately had bad seasons. Christian got hurt. Zeke kind of turned into a shell of himself. Like, when did that change in your mind?
I'm not I'm trying to think of when it changed. I know there's a clump of guys that are all kind of in that same
but
12,
it was like 2 or 3 year
But I
flash.
think, if I remember right, I kind of remember when Carolina was doing that deal with McCaffrey, and I think, he was able to get what he got because he was a 1,000-yard receiver and a 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah,
so I
has only
believe,
happened a couple times.
Again, I wasn't in but I think that the argument from the player and the agent side is, he's not just a running back, he's a 1,000-yard receiver as well, which is rare. But yeah, again, it's not that people aren't trying to pay running backs. Maybe some teams did, and the deals weren't able to get done. But again, like we're in a good spot here. I'm glad Saquon's here. He means a lot to the football team, and we tried.
So you have a good relationship with him. Like after the negotiation was settled, it was no big deal. Back to work.
All along, and I've said this in a couple interviews before. Like brought him up in November, before the bye week, and just said, "Hey, this is the business part. You played out your fifth-year option. You haven't been through this before. There's nothing personal." And he understood that all the way to the end. And when he came back in, I told him all along, like, things are going to be back to normal. You're part of the football team. We're going to go out there and get to work.
Are you going to try to get a long-term deal done with Xavier McKinney soon?
We're going to wait and get through the season. I mean, X is he's a leader. He was a captain last year. He had the unfortunate incident, but he's a young player with upside. And again, we'll just have to see where we are. We don't have a lot of cap space right now to do much more. Right. I think the pockets are empty. So, but he's a guy that's important to us. That again, we'd like to be here long term. We'll see how it plays out through the season, and if we can get something done down the road, he's somebody we'd like to have.
You feel like a straight shooter. I know you are a straight shooter because I know you a little bit, but you're a straight shooter. Does that help you in these what could be emotional situations with some of these players and or maybe more specifically their agents?
Yeah, I'm still kind of learning that myself because I do feel like
it's only your second year, right?
I do feel like, again, it's just different agents have different negotiating tactics. So you can negotiate one way, I can negotiate one way with you, and it can be different with each person down. So the longer you're around, the more deals you do with certain agents, you kind of know, hey, okay, this guy will be easy to get a deal done. This guy, this is going to be like pulling teeth. This is going to be miserable. This is going to be a long process. So, I'd like to say, hey, here's where we're going to go. This is why we think it's fair, and we're not going to move much off it, and that is what it is. But that rarely happens, unfortunately. It's usually a long, drawn-out process, and typically you find a spot where, I get a little uncomfortable, and the player and his representatives get a little uncomfortable, and you get a deal done.
Yeah, then you go have a beverage, and everything is all good.
And then everybody's happy, and you hug it out.
Let me dig into this team a little bit. So last year there was a lot of Saquon. There was a lot of Daniel Jones. Not a ton of big plays. But I think your approach to this offseason was intentional. I mean, you need big plays.
Yeah.
The statistics tell you you're more likely to score when you have big plays downfield. So Paris Campbell, who had a rough 3 first seasons in Indy, but had a pretty good year last year, and he's a Blazer. Right, obviously you draft Jalen Hyatt, which is a steal, which I believe in the 3rd round. You get Darren Waller for a pick that you got rid of Kadarius Toney for. It's almost like this team developed to become more big, right?
Yeah.
Is that the mindset? Is that what you guys are looking to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just said the statistics show, but to go 13, 14 plays and kick a field goal.
Hard. It's hard not to make a mistake.
It's hard to sustain drives for an offense that long. That's the way some defenses play. Like, we're just going to play soft, and you got to put all these, convert all these 3rd downs and get down the field, and then we're going to bend, don't break, and force you to kick a field goal. So, yeah, and Slayton as well. Slayton can stretch the field on top of that. So, it'll be interesting how teams play us, because then you have Saquon. Last year, you could stack the box and, hey, Saquon's not going to beat us. We're going to make Daniel and the receivers beat us. And I think this year that may look a little bit different if you're going to stack the box on Saquon. We have a few more options, I think, on the perimeter. Also Waller, and then if they're going to play coverage, you still have a very good back in the backfield that can hurt you there. So I'm excited about the group.
Yeah, you should be.
Joe, you mentioned not much more financial flexibility. But last year you put on a masterclass. Pinnock, Moreau, all those guys at the end. The team still has some holes. Do you feel like the 53 is in the building?
We're always going to look. Yeah, we've been making those phone calls. We're actually just, kind of today after that first set of preseason games, we divvy up the league, call our general managers or personnel directors. Hey, do you have a surplus anywhere? Are you looking for anything? Even just possible practice squad guys. You could go player for player. But, yeah, we're in the midst of that right now. It's kind of like Groundhog's Day, because you can never do enough film on these players. So last year was different because we were 5th in the claiming order. We're in the 20s this year. So a lot of other teams will have a bite at the apple before we do on some of these players. But, yeah, it's never finished, and knock on wood we get through the next couple of weeks healthy. But, yeah, we'll continue to look, and whether it's upgrading the practice squad, the back end of the roster, starters, we'll continue to look.
We're talking to Joe Schoen. So hearing you talk about the salary cap you inherited, it was a mess. It was disastrous. Dave Gettleman did you no favors. But then you inherited some pretty good talent from Dave Gettleman.
Yeah.
I mean, Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones. You ever call him up and say, Dave, great job with this, but my God, you left me a mess with the cap? You ever talk to your predecessor the way presidents do?
No, I haven't, but I have a lot of respect for Dave Gettleman. He worked with Brandon Beane, who I worked with in Carolina, so I got to know Dave when he was in Carolina, and then Ryan Cowden, who we just got from the Titans, is a good friend of mine, very good at his job, and he was with Dave too, and so I got a lot of respect for Dave. And I said it at my opening press conference, the cupboard wasn't bare. There were some young players that were talented, and we were able to take care of a couple of those guys.
I forgot about that incestuous Carolina connection.
I never worked with him.
I know, but I'm just thinking about it now.
Yeah.
From the head coach up in Buffalo now. That's interesting.
The whole NFL is incestuous.
Of course it is, but I just forgot that until you mentioned that.
Yeah, there's definitely some connections there.
And I'm certainly not the only one. I think a lot of people assume that when a GM and coach take over, they want their own guys. We want this guy out. We want to bring our own guys in. You never did that. And is that a misnomer that we have as fans, that GMs and coaches want their own guys? Or are you the exception? Because you looked at the roster that was there. You just said it. Cupboard wasn't bare. And not only kept guys, locked them up long term. So is that a misnomer we've always had about new GMs and coaches?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's going to have their own philosophy, and Dave's and I are aligned. We just want to win. I don't give a crap how the players got here, who they are, but we just want to win. And if they're going to help us win, we'll take care of them if they're in that type of contract situation. So our philosophy was come in, evaluate the talent, again, keep our own, sign our own. I was looking at it. I can't remember. It might have been Shep and Odell in terms of draft picks that have been extended here.
Yeah, not a lot.
Over the last 8-9 years. I looked at this a while ago. So that hadn't been done very much. So I think it was important, and it was outstanding experience for those guys last year to win. They hadn't really won either. So Andrew Thomas to get a playoff win, Daniel to get a playoff win, Saquon, Dexter, some of your young core players to experience that, go on the road and win a playoff game, and also perform at a high level. So I think that's good to have those guys as leaders on your team as well. As we continue to progress and build this thing, they can help, as the onboarding process, as we continue to bring new talent in, our young guys, and help elevate them as well if we're ever in that situation.
You bring up Dave's for a second. Now, maybe I'm just a prisoner to social media, but I see him a little bit more animated this year. What is that? An urgency? Is that like what is that? Or is it just Dave's and he was kind of faking it last year, being the calm, cool, collected guy?
Nah, there's no calm, cool, collected about Dave. So you might have missed the camera may not have panned to him as much last year, but one of the great stories is the Thanksgiving Day game. We're sitting there. Everybody knows he likes to have cigars, so he's outside the hotel having a cigar, and he's like, "I'm going to be calm today. I'm going to be calm." I'm like, "We're going to be in the game, and you're going to start going off." And sure enough, like after that Thanksgiving Day game, there was 5 or 6 memes or whatever you call it of him up there just ripping the officials and everything else. So, no, we're both uber competitive and have a lot of passion. We want to win at everything we do, and I think we're aligned that way. And again, to your question, like the players, no matter how they got here,
right,
they're going to help us win. Like that's what we're about.
I got the vibe last year of a year ago when I would ask you, hey, what are your expectations for this team? I got the vibe of, I don't know. Let's just see. I'm not going to make any guarantees. Well, now you made the playoffs. You won a playoff game. What are your expectations? Like, if this team misses the playoffs, is that a disaster to you?
Yeah, I'm not going to put it, I don't want to make any proclamations that we're going to do this or that. I want to continue to see us get better. And I think, whether it's through the offseason, some of the guys we brought in or draft picks or year 2 with the continuity of the staff, I think that's all important. But, again, you're right. Last year, like I had no idea. And again, it goes back to we're down at halftime in the Tennessee game. You don't know how each team's going to respond. Like, how are we going to come out in the second half? We're down 17-3 in the second quarter against the Packers in London. Like, some teams fold, some guys fold, some teams are front runners, some so you just never know that. So every year is different. Some of the guys left that were here last year that were contributors, and we have new contributors. So again, we're still trying to build that continuity and chemistry amongst the group, and the idea is we continue to progress and get better.
Is there a specific weakness on the team you highlighted when losing to Dallas and Philly all 4 games last year that had to be addressed this year?
No, I would just say they were more talented than us. I mean, at the end of the day, I think
keep it real.
Yeah, keep it real. Like there was a little bit of a talent gap between both teams, and
how about now? You feel like you closed it?
Yeah, we got to go play the game. Words don't mean anything. You got to go play, and again, we're looking forward to week 1. Obviously, we have Dallas coming here, which will be exciting, and we got to be ready. We have 3 games in 11 days to start the season. Having that Thursday night game, week 3. So, we got to be callous. We got to be in shape and ready to go.
You want to be on Hard Knocks next year? Like, are you watching the Jets saying, boy, that'd be fun?
I was in Miami when they did it that one year, so I was a road scout, so I was only there for about a week and a half. But, yeah, I don't really have a desire to do that.
Well, Joe, good luck. Great job so far, obviously. You're the toast of the town. Every other GM in this town we want fired.
Yeah, that lasts about 5 minutes.
I was going to warn you with that.
Yeah, I've been in this league long enough. I know how that lasts.
Enjoy it for now. All right, thank you, Joe. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks, guys.
Joe Schoen, the general manager of the New York Giants. We are live from Giants training camp.